Have you heard? They are now trying to figure out consciousness. Our tech overlords believe, euphorically, that they have solved intelligence. Now that they figured out intelligence, let's figure out consciousness. Well, the truth is, they haven't figured out intelligence. All they've created is a clever way of storing intelligence, of subsuming the works of intelligent people, whether it's through words, language, visuals, music, and encapsulated it in what they call a neural network, but it's really just a bunch of tensors storing information in tokenized form so that you can interact with it, you can prompt it, and have it react with a response that is very close to the one you're looking for. Now, this is not intelligence, it's storage. It's a form of actionable storage in abstracted form that doesn't really think, it reacts to a prompt. You touch it and boop, it gives you the reaction that makes the most sense. And now there's this battle playing out as who can store the most, not only in terms of the training of the network, but in terms of its ability to interact with large prompts that have large context windows, and you could potentially give it like an entire book to read and have it synthesize it for you. And really, so it's really a battle of hardware at this point, of how many GPUs can you throw at the task. So they have not figured out intelligence. They've only figured out how to store intelligence and have it regurgitate what it's stored given an interaction. Now, that isn't to say that it's not amazing. It is amazing, and it is essentially performing the task that we've normally paid intelligent creatures to perform, specifically humans. And so it does bring about a, frankly, calamitous scenario for this thing we call the market and the workplace. But I find it funny that they have believed they've solved intelligence, and now they're going to figure out consciousness. But all they will be able to do is simulate consciousness. They'll be able to definitely make you believe that something is conscious, because it's simply a matter of acting it out. But internally, it's not really having an internal experience. Whatever they're going to create is not going to have an authentic internal experience like you and I are having. Now, ironically, I think that the people who develop these technologies don't have much of an inner experience. In fact, I don't think they're very conscious creatures. I think consciousness exists in degrees among people. Not everyone has the same level of consciousness. And our tech bros tend to be very robotic in the way they think. They're very much tool. They view themselves almost as a tool, as a means to produce a product, you know. And it won't surprise me if they create something that they believe is conscious, only because the extent of its consciousness may not be that much different from their own. But they haven't figured out intelligence. and they definitely won't figure out consciousness. But sadly, they will fool most of the world into believing they have. And this I find to be a tragedy. That people can be so easily fooled. And I guess it's largely why I do what I do. I try to call things out as they are, at least as I see them. You know, I've done a lot of writing about consciousness myself because it is a subject that has fascinated me. What is consciousness? It's such an old question. It's where things like "I think, therefore I am" comes from. Our desire as humans to introspect and figure out who am I, right? This question of how is I even real? And what is that? I think this question ultimately is what has sparked so much debate within philosophy, within psychology, and within religion. And so it's a question that I put a lot of thought into. And I recently had a kind of an epiphany, actually. I've written a lot about consciousness. But it dawned on me that we as humans seem to have an ability to refuse becoming conscious. Actually, maybe conscious is not the right word. Refuse to bring something into our field of awareness. Having a field of awareness is almost like a prerequisite to consciousness. It's almost like something that happens before consciousness. First, there must be a field of awareness, and you can only, and conscious emerges out of that, and the consciousness is conscious of that field. But I realized that we have an aversion to bring things into our field of awareness because we have an aversion to responsibility. In other words, you will not bring something into your field of awareness that you do not want to take responsibility for. Or perhaps that you just don't take responsibility for. That it's not within the realm of your responsibilities, so you don't even bother bringing it into your field of awareness. And this can be really simple, mundane stuff. Like I remember in my first marriage, my first wife was very into the yard and gardening and taking care of the outside of the house. And because she was so on top of it, I never even bothered exploring the perimeter of the house and familiarizing myself with the lot, really all that much. And then when I got into another relationship where I was largely responsible for taking care of the outside of the house, it was like this whole new realm came into my field of awareness, having to do with the property, having to do with where the utilities are, all this stuff. And why? Because now it was my responsibility to take care of that. So it entered my field of awareness, and all of a sudden my consciousness expanded. It expanded because now I was aware of more things. I was responsible for more things. And so there seems to be a relationship between the willingness to take responsibility and how much how much your consciousness expands. And frankly, given how how irresponsible our tech bros tend to be, I think reaching the ability to understand consciousness is not going to be within their grasp anytime soon. So yes, this is where things like willful ignorance comes in. You see this in people, and you saw it especially during COVID, where people just really didn't want to see the truth about something, right? They'd rather believe the narrative because, and you could tell that there was a strong aversion to truth. Because to bring that into your field of awareness would mean all of a sudden having to take responsibility for that. And as humans, you know, are at an animal level, we want to have our cake and eat it. We want to take without earning. We want to win without striving. You know, we want to have more than we deserve. We want wants more than needs. It's just a fundamental part of the human and animal condition, I think. And so responsibility, so much responsibility aversion, and it's only getting worse over time because so much is taken care of for us. And again, why I think responsibility, as you've heard me rant several times on this channel, is the fundamental moral certainty of life. The more you can develop your ability to take responsibility and accountability, first of all, for yourself, right? At a basic level, at least take accountability and responsibility for yourself. When you grow in that power, you will find yourself in situations where you can also help others, be responsible for others, like being a parent, taking care of a child, having your own parents grow into old age and being able to take care of them. Responsibility seems to be at the base of everything, apparently even consciousness. At least this is my latest epiphany. And so we can only grow in consciousness as long as we're willing to grow in responsibility. So I thought that would be a thought worth sharing. Let me know what you think. Are they going to solve consciousness? Have they solved intelligence? I bet you anything within the next 5 years they're going to claim to have solved it. But all they will have produced is an illusion. Smoke and mirrors. And most will believe it's true. Thanks for watching.